Welcome back in. We are back another week, another live. We are down one preseason week. We are actually 3 weeks from tomorrow is kickoff to the NFL season. So feels pretty good. We're getting closer. Yeah, and so so far, luckily, we really haven't had too many injuries and all that
Don't say it. Don't
we've
just
had.
don't say it. Just don't
Yeah,
say it.
I mean we've come unscathed so far, but here we are. So I appreciate everybody that's rocking with us. And today we decided let's do a mock. The most, really all the big drafts are coming for most people. Most people, their home leagues or whatever they have coming is going to happen over the next probably 2.5 weeks before the season starts. And so we thought it'd be a good day just to do a mock, right? So we're going to do a 12-team PPR mock. We got all of our fine people from our Discord to jump in. So they're all going to be in here with us while we're doing this. So it should be good. That's one benefit of being in our Discord. If you are new here, just watching this, send a link in every one of our videos that we do. And it's absolutely free. It takes nothing to be in there. And, I think we got a really solid community in there. Everybody talks quite a bit. When anytime breaking news happens, you don't even have to worry about Adam Schefter because the TFA Discord's got you unlocked. You immediately get it in the Discord. So anyways, that being said, I know everybody's waiting to get this going, so I don't want to, keep this prolonged. So, Cody, you are drafting from the 103, I believe. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
And I will be I almost went with the 105. So a lot of the people had already jumped in before I could pick a spot, and like 106, 107, 108, I think we're already off the board. And I love this middle rounds, but then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to do a 112 draft. I was like, no, I'm going to go with the old faithful. I'm going to go with 105. So one of us is going to get sniped here before too long because we are picking right next to each other. You're at the 103, yeah. I'm at the 105. So let's go ahead and get this banger going.
Let's do it. Yeah, shout out to the TFA Discord. Just a regular 12-team PPR mock draft here. No bells and whistles. We're always doing we're always dropping mocks in the Discord chat as well. So if you guys want to jump into the Discord, there's always people asking a mock, asking for I'm on the block there we go.
Ooh, like that.
It's time to move him up, man. It's time to move Cooper Kupp up. I honestly think that he should be in the discussion for 101 overall. Like, I think it's easy with what happened with the Rams last year to kind of forget the trajectory that Kupp was on. We're going to have our ranking videos coming out either maybe Friday or at the beginning of next week. And Kupp will be moving up in my ranks. I moved him up to 2, had him down too far for too long. Obviously could have went someone like Eckler there if I wanted to just lock up the running back position, but Cooper Kupp was on pace to be like the 3rd overall fantasy player in terms of points per game. It was only Jalen Hurts and Patty Mahomes ahead of him. Just ungodly amounts of volume. Can't find it anywhere else. If obviously, with Stafford and Kupp, the thing is with their health, right? But if they're right, Kupp should be in the discussion for the 101.
I 100% agree. I mean, I've talked about it. So even if when you look at his ADP, or not his ADP, how he performed last year, on service level, he had 22 fantasy points per game. But if you take out that last week that he played, where he only played a limited number of snaps, he actually averaged 25 fantasy points per game, which is right there on the same trajectory as he was the year prior, whenever he had that legendary season. So there's a ton to love with Cooper Kupp. And, if you look at his ADP in a lot of places, like he's really going like 106, 107. It's even a little bit later because we're seeing Christian McCaffrey and Austin Eckler go within those first 4 picks. And he's kind of being pushed down a little bit. And so I think he's a tremendous, value for for drafting somebody in the first round. Like, it's really hard for me to make a decision usually between Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill. You made the decision easy for me. Because for me, and I talked about it in the last 2 videos I've done, like I want that early round wide receiver. Like there's this perception in most years that wide receiver is so deep, right? And so you can forego wide receiver, you can wait. I don't think that's true anymore, to be honest with you. Like the way wide receiver is being pushed up this year, and it's not as dramatic. And it's not as dramatic right now as far as the as far as like underdog ADP compared to like ESPN or Yahoo, but it's still pretty dramatic considering how many wide receivers are being drafted in the first round. And so, like, you're not that same value is not there where it is for running back. Like, running back feels deep all the way to like round 7, right? Like the round 6 running backs, there's a ton of running backs in those ranges that I really like. I think round 5, there's a lot of running backs. So running back feels way more deeper because they're being pushed down, and you're getting like the running backs used to go in the first. Now they're going in the second, back half of the second, or even sometimes the third round, depending on your draft. And so, like, I mean, guys that we have in our top 12 are going in like the third round. Where wide receiver, that's not the case. And so, like, I want that elite wide receiver because there is a big drop off, but I also don't want to. I feel like you could almost go with a anchor wide receiver approach, and I that's not something anybody's really talking about, but I actually think it's not a bad way to go because I want that because the value that's there at running back is so incredible. Because in round 2, you have like Nick Chubb and Rashad Penny, Nick Chubb and Tony Pollard, Rashad Penny. um, Guys like that are sitting there on the board, and in round 2, and I love those guys. And then in round 3, you come back and get Joe Mixon or Ramondre Stevenson, and then if you want to get your quarterback, like you can do all these things and still have enough time in a little bit in the middle rounds to be able to still get some other wide receivers that are there. And so that's kind of the direction that I really have enjoyed going seven drafting.
Look at this familiar face popping in here, Sir Jobby referees coming in, giving you some props, Kev. I'm not used to this. We're used to the back and forth and the Robbie kind of coming at you here, but he's giving you some props here at the Tyreek pick. Was there anyone else that you were debating there, or was that Tyreek all the way?
CHP, yes, he acknowledged Rashad Penny. Acknowledge him. Yes. I mean, no, no. Actually, there wasn't anybody. Like he's the guy that I want. Like I feel like that there's this elite tier of wide receiver of Jefferson, Cup, Chase, and Tyreek. Like those are the four. I think you can include Stephon Diggs in that conversation as well. I think the five of them are kind of like the the guys that I really want. But I would take Tyreek over Stephon Diggs really all day right now. So no, there really wouldn't be anybody else. And Robbie, it's been weird not having anybody to argue with all offseason. I don't really know what to do, but so I just find myself just arguing to myself because I don't have anybody to argue with the entire time. So good to see you back, my friend. Hope things are well.
And then Gator wanted to know the earliest we are willing to take Eckler. I mean, I think it depends. I mean, I think the earliest you could debate on taking him would be like in that 102 to like 104 range, depending on how you have McCaffrey and Eckler. Like those are my top two running backs this year. McCaffrey right now has the edge. I could flip flop on that, but those to me are the top two. So I think in that 102 to 104 range. I also think it comes down to like if you have the ability to where your league and you kind of know how these guys and gals value certain players in certain positions. Like you should have a pretty good read if you've been in the same league. Like say it's your friends and family league that you've been in for a couple years. You should have a pretty good read on how people tend to value positions. So in general, wide receivers have been getting pushed up. Now it's starting to even out a little bit, but it still tends to be a more wide receiver heavy. I mean, we only had three? We had four running backs go in the first round here. But if you think that a wide receiver can slide to you, you can go ahead and debate on Eckler. Like I said, like the 102 to 104 range, I think is like the absolute earliest I would take him. But in general, I'm with you, Kev, because the wide receivers are getting pushed up. I mean, Amon St. Brown going in the second round here, Garrett Wilson going in the second round. I think I do want to take. I haven't thought of it that way, but I do like the thought of the anchor wide receiver approach.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think there's just so much value that's being pushed down at running back that you can go that elite wide receiver and then get like two, like top 12 running backs with your next two picks, depending on where you pick. And so, like, I just think that this feels like because this happened, and I really need to um, like I really want to. I really wish I had time, which we don't really have a ton of time, before the season starts. But because I would like to dig into this because I know this happened. I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago where something similar to this happened, where the running backs cratered the year prior, and everybody was on board with zero RB like there is now, right? And wide receivers got pushed up dramatically than what we had seen, and then they just absolutely fell on their face the next year, and it did not work out. And so, like, I think that could happen this year. Like, I'm not saying like all these wide receivers are going to fail, but I think where we see running backs come back being more of the value, like what we always wanted in the earlier rounds, right? That was because that was the point of zero RB because wide receivers were always at such a value that you were able to avoid some of the chaos at the running back position and be able to still get elite wide receivers. Well, that's not the case anymore. But
You're
everybody's
on the
peddling
clock, Kev.
zero. Everybody's peddling zero RB, which doesn't make any sense whenever the value's gone. There is no value anymore at that position.
Yeah. Yep. Well, you are making your pick. TX want to know it would be crazy to take Bijan at 4 in a 12-team league after Jefferson, CMC, and Chase. I personally don't have Bijan that high, just because I feel a little bit better with Eckler and Barkley. Those are the other two running backs I have ahead of him. So if I was going to go running back there, it would be Eckler. But like, I wouldn't. I don't think you would get laughed at by any means. Bijan looks to be like the truth. I saw. I don't know. I'm gonna have to double check this, but I saw somebody uh, tweeted that like even if Bijan only got like 65% of the carries, he would still be looking at upwards of like 270 carries because of how run heavy that offense was. You know what I mean? So like he can still like I was a little bit questioning him just in terms of wondering if some of these other guys were going to um, start getting some more touches, but whenever you think about it that way, it's hard to it's hard to pass up on the volume that Bijan would be looking at.
Oh, absolutely, and not even that, but also the elite offensive line is going to be on. We know that the volume is 100% going to be there. This is going to be a team that's going to be top 3 in rush attempts this year. That's because that's what Arthur Smith loves to do. He opines the days of the '90s when it was all the running backs were the rage, and so he's the one keeping them the value afloat for them. But I mean, we've seen it. I mean, his scheme has really worked. I mean, obviously, it helps when you have Derrick Henry, right? And then you go from that to Bijan Robinson. But they have continually been, their running backs have produced, and so but we did see it last year without a Bijan Robinson, right? We saw Tyler Algier and Cordell Patterson, still lead one of the leagues. I think they were second rushing yards per game last year. I think it was like almost 160 rushing yards per game, and so I just think that he is so safe. And you see a lot of people like it happens every year when it comes to these rookies that like, oh, I'm not taking this guy. I can't draft him. He's a rookie. Because it's more of the like I've never seen it yet. And I just like I don't care. Like we know the volume is going to be there. We know he is a generational talent. He's one of the best running back prospects we've ever seen come out. And so barring an injury, I just don't see how he fails. Like I think he's going to handle 70, 80% of the workload here in this backfield. Tyler Algier probably mixes that a little bit, but I just don't think there's really anything to be worried about or scared away with.
Yeah. So when it got to me, back to me in this, I guess Kev, since you had the first pick between us in the second round, you went Olave. I know that's one of your guys this year. Again, anyone else that you were debating? Obviously, Pollard went a couple picks before you. Waddle went right before that. If Pollard were there, would you have taken Pollard over Olave, or would that still have been Olave?
It would have been Pollard.
Okay.
If like I've said before, like I don't care where Pollard is at when I'm on the clock. If he's sitting there, I'm drafting him. Like in the second round, like I could have been picking at the 201, and I'm taking Pollard. Like
Okay.
I just think his ceiling is absolutely incredible this year, and so it was really a decision between for me it was Olave and Ramondre Stevenson, which you took was really the decision I was trying to go between, but I decided to go with Chris Olave here with that pick.
Yeah, then I went obviously started Cup, then I went Higgins in the second. Just went Higgins there. This is why you should be putting your running backs into tiers, right? Like I was looking at Higgins. I was debating on taking a running back there, but I was looking. Taylor was still there. Ramondre was there, Najee was there. I was comfortable with one of them. I was actually kind of looking at taking Mark Andrews, who went the pick right before me. I kind of like taking that early tight end this year. If Andrews were there, I probably would have leaned him and then maybe just kind of went like zero RB at that point. But with Andrews going off the board, like I said, I felt like one of those running backs is going to fall to me. Stevenson did. I took him. I guess this is a good, we'll jump into Robbie's question here. But with the news that we got with Zeke landing with the Patriots, see some people moving Stevenson down. Then obviously Dalvin Cook landing with the Jets. I am moving Breece Hall down. I'm more worried about Breece Hall with Dalvin Cook than I am Stevenson with Zeke Elliott. I think Zeke's going to get some of the touches, good in pass pro, that sort of thing. But we've seen the past couple of years, it's been coming. The dude is washed. I think he's running behind, obviously, a worse line here than he was with Dallas. I'm just not. I'm not all that worried about it. So I'm kind of keeping Stevenson in the same range, but I did move Breece Hall down.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Zeke at all, really, for Ramondre.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not that I think at best he plays he plays Damian Harris role, but I just don't think this is going to drastically move the line of what Ramondre Stevenson is, and what we should expect. And actually, it could probably be a good thing because you're right. I think his ADP is going to fall. I think there are people that are going to avoid him because of this, or pass over him because of the fear of Ezekiel Elliott because of his name. And I just don't think there's really much of a reason to really be all that concerned with it. I guess he's not. I would say he's not like as sexy as of an option because of the other options there, but I don't think it's like anything detrimental. Like it's not like, oh man, okay, we got to be out on this. Where Breece Hall does worry me a little bit more with Dalvin Cook, mainly because of the injuries he's coming off of. I think it's possible that they kind of really limited. But I do think if Breece Hall, depending on where you can draft him, I think in the second half of the season, you really could see him take back off again and really take over. Because Dalvin Cook was starting to show signs of decline too. Like he just wasn't the same efficient running back he was. But I think there is more concern with Dalvin Cook being there than there is with Zeke in New England.
Yeah, I'm with you. So Robbie's saying interesting dynamic with QB this year. Last year, TFA was one of the few sites to champion the early-ish QB. Who are we targeting now? I'll say for me, the early quarterback I want is Lamar Jackson because I feel like he's the one who's going to slip a little bit. It's still so hard for me to pull the trigger on Mahomes at the end of the second. There's some places where he's starting to get pushed up to the early second, end of the first. I just can't do that. I'll wait and I'll try and get Lamar. I think Herbert makes a ton of sense as well. If you can kind of get him in like that early-ish type of range. And if I don't get them, the guy that I find myself drawn toward is old reliable Kirk Cousins as the late round quarterback. I feel like he's going to flirt with that back end QB1 range again. There's going to be a ton of volume to go around. Obviously, they added Jordan Addison. That defense, I think, potentially got worse from where it was last year, and it was not a good defense last year. So, going to be plenty of passing volume to go around. What about you, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, I can't take like that early of a quarterback. Like, really, I shocked me. I did we talked about it most of the offseason. Like, it's possible that we could see like a couple quarterbacks go in the first round, but I didn't really think it was going to happen. But now it's actually happening. And Patrick Mahomes in ESPN leagues, anyways. But on Fantasy Pros, his ADP is now a first round pick from Patrick Mahomes, which is too much for me. I just don't think that just doesn't make any sense to do that. But I think the pocket of quarterbacks that I really love taking is the Herbert range and the Justin Fields range. Like once Fields is going back half of the fourth, you have Justin Herbert going in the fifth. Like I love targeting quarterbacks in that spot. I think both of them have obviously elite ceilings. We already saw it from Justin Fields. I think Justin Herbert bounces back. I think Kellen Moore is a positive for this offense, and adding Quentin Johnson, Austin Eckler, all the other weapons that are still there. I just think there's a lot to like there with that situation. If you wanted to wait on quarterback, I think Deshaun Watson would be the next guy I would look at, and then past that, I really think Geno Smith. I really don't understand why Geno Smith's ADP is where it's at. It's like QB 15 or something like that. I don't get why. He was a QB 8 last year. They've added more weapons with Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, there's a ton to like here with this. Their schedule is going to be fantastic. And they also obviously it never hurts to be able to play the. I mean, because the Cardinals secondary and the Rams secondary is going to be putrid. I think the Rams secondary is starting all undrafted rookies in their secondary. That's how bad that secondary is going to be. Like it is going to be horrific. And so, like, I think that Geno Smith is. I think more so. Maybe people are just hesitant, thinking that what he did last year is a fluke, and I just don't think that it was.
Yeah, surprising. Normally we see whenever guys have seasons like he did, they get pushed up a little bit. Um, I am one of those people who's afraid he's going to turn back into the pumpkin that he's been, right? Like the Cinderella, the slipper, lost that glass slipper, not going to be what he was. I mean, I think he could come back down to earth and still be okay. I don't think he's going to be dreadful. Some of the underlying and advanced statistics definitely suggest that what he did last year was for real. It's just so like I don't know. I would rather take the bet on again somebody like a Kirk Cousins. I think Deshaun Watson is a really nice call as well. Kind of someone who's slipping a little bit. I think Anthony Richardson is intriguing, but at the same time, Trey Lance is kind of burning that into my memory as someone who had obviously a similar skill set, and that did not work out. But I still think Richardson, obviously playing at the bigger school, I think had some more starts than what Trey Lance did at a lower level as well. But I like the Watson call.
So I know we're just into the fourth round, but is there any team that's obviously outside of your own that stands out to you that you really like the way they started?
Do you have a team in mind? Or are you just trying to put me on the spot and make me look like an asshat?
No, I actually think I think Alexis's team. I really like that start with Diggs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then I mean Najee Harris. I think is fine. He's still a volume grinder back. Uh, and then you have Aaron Jones, who Aaron Jones like I see the ceiling there, and he could be a top 12 running back again this season because he's so incredibly efficient. He didn't really show any signs of slowing down, but it worries me with not having Aaron Rodgers in the offense. Like Jordan Love is such a wild card that Aaron Rodgers did a terrific job of really. I mean, he really favors running backs, targets them a lot, and so. I just don't know if Aaron Jones is going to get the same level of workload, and I could see AJ Dillon maybe being a little bit more involved as well. But I do really like that start. Obviously I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think you got two elite wide receivers there, and then running backs. I think they're not great, but they're also not terrible either. Like I think those are really solid start there for that team. And then I also think,
You're on the clock, Kev.
oh yeah, see, I'm just here talking. But yeah, I that would be the team that I would definitely lean towards.
Take a look at the draft board here while you are making your pick. I do like Tebow's team with McCaffrey, Taylor, then locking up Andrews in third. I like that team. Going to be interested to see what he can do with wide receiver after that, because obviously we've talked about how wide receiver is getting pushed up, and now going to the fourth round here does not have a wide receiver yet. I can't see. I also like Andrews' team with Lamb, Wilson Cooper, and then Jahmyr Gibbs as well. I do like that start.
Yes, I think that team is really good too, and I like, Ashton. He's going with a little anchor wide receiver approach so far. I love to see it. We just coined it, I guess. And he's going with the approach. I see, and this is what I'm talking about. Like you feel really. I mean, obviously Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb can finish as a top 3 running back this year as well with the situation he's in. Now you have Jerome Ford that's dealing with an injury, but we already knew that he was going to be heavily involved as a runner. And there's been a lot of talk about him being more involved as a pass catcher with Kareem Hunt gone. Travis Etienne, I think, has gotten a really bad rap this year. Like, it feels very much, and I said this on the last video I just did, but it feels very much like Josh Jacobs last year. Like, everybody last year was opining for Zamir White. I remember back in the preseason, right, in the Hall of Fame game, I think it was, that like Josh Jacobs, everyone's like, oh my God, Josh Jacobs playing in the Hall of Fame game. Oh man, this is trouble for Josh Jacobs. Zamir White's taking his job and all this other stuff, right? And it was all this hype about Zamir White and how he was going to be a big factor and he was going to kill Josh Jacobs. Well, as we know, Zamir White was a fucking zero last year, did absolutely nothing. And not that I'm thinking Josh Jacobs is going to be that guy and he's going to get all of the opportunities, going to completely dominate the backfield. I also think Travis Etienne is being undersold and how important and how much involvement he's going to have. And I also think Tank Bigsby is being hyped up too much, right? Like, I don't mind taking shots on Tank Bigsby later in the draft, but people are acting like that it's going to be like some 50-50 split. Tank Bigsby's going to get all the pass catching work and the goal line work, and all Travis Etienne's going to get is like, the between the 20s work or something like that. Like, that's not going to happen. Travis Etienne is far superior running back to Tank Bigsby. And so I just think that some of that's just being overhyped. And then obviously, honestly, getting Josh Allen in the 4th round is not going to happen in any other draft. Like, it's just not going to happen. Josh Allen's going to go in the 2nd for most people. But excellent work there, Ashton, getting Josh Allen in the 4th round.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it came back, Kev, you took Mixon in the 3rd, and then Hawkinson in the 4th. Hawkinson was someone who I was looking at. This is what I need to stop doing in drafts. I feel like if I like, it's obviously if I kind of feel like I'm like jinxing myself if I like look and start to plan out like, okay, I want this guy to fall to me, because now it's happened twice. It wasn't the next pick snipe like Tebow fan with getting Andrews, but I was looking at Hawk. I was kind of hoping he was going to fall to me. Ended up going with Miles Sanders there. I know he has the, kind of dealing with the groin right now. I'm not necessarily all that worried about it at this point. And he's someone who, we're talking about really not being able to find too many running backs that are kind of like in workhorse type roles. I think Sanders could be that. I think his passing game involvement is also going to tick up, obviously, from where it's been with Philly. So he's someone who I really like getting in the 4th round. Then when it came back to me, I was thinking about going wide receiver there. I thought about going quarterback, but I decided to not take Herbert. Went with Madison again, just with went with another running back and going with Madison. Just with the kind of the thought process of now I can just completely ignore it and start to load up on other wide receivers, maybe a quarterback, find my early tight end, whatever it ends up being. But with Madison, again, workhorse role, getting someone like that who's expected to probably handle 70-ish%, I would assume, of the running back touches there in the early 5th. Just didn't want to pass up on him. Obviously, Breece Hall kind of in the mix, but I think at this point, I feel better about Madison's workload than Breece Hall.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think there's like Madison's such like he's kind of polarizing. Where I think people are on like dividing. There's a dividing line with him where people either like all in on him or completely out on him. Like I can see both sides, right? Like Alexander Madison's a career backup. He's never been somebody that's really, and he looked really good in the early process, and then since then he's kind of fizzled off a little bit. But also on the other side, the Vikings felt good enough with him by bringing him back, giving him some guaranteed money, removing Dalvin Cook, releasing him. They didn't draft. They didn't draft anybody of significance in terms of value where they were able to take him. And so I think Alexander Madison's 100% going to get all of the at least he's going to get the chance to be able to have that opportunity. I think the only other running back that like it's tough to because I think Ty Chandler and both Dwayne McBride, if we get a clear indication who could be the number 2, I think taking some shots on a guy like that late isn't a bad idea because there is this path. Like I don't think Alexander Madison is like he's not like an elite running back where he's locked in and you have to worry about like there is a world where Alexander Madison really struggles or gets hurt early on in the season and one of these other 2 come in and take the job. Like that's not out of the range of possibility, but the path is there for him to be a top 12 running back. this year. And so like I totally get it, especially with what's going on with Brees Hall. Makes it kind of tough. And so yeah, I don't fault you one bit for taking Alexander Madison over Brees Hall right now.
Yeah, the wide receivers that were available are kind of like they're all like in a similar group for me. Like I thought about Pittman, obviously Ayuk, London, like they're all kind of like lumped together, and I'm not really I don't know, just not really sold on any, or I guess I don't really have any of them ranked so much higher. Like, or again, we were talking about tiers, having any of those guys in a tier above. So I felt okay waiting on grabbing my third wide receiver here as we get into the 6th round.
Robbie, another W take here. Too far live stream without pumping up yet another fire kicker video. Hey, it's come yearly tradition now. I know. I mark it on my calendars now, and I'm just excited to do it. Just to be the kicker
August
god.
1st.
Yep, just got to get that kicker video out there. Got to get the kicker takes in. That's what people want. And I don't know if you saw this comment come through, but there is a comment. If you haven't, you should go look. There is a comment on that video that is a fucking paragraph. Like the guy wrote a book about how to spice up your league with adding more kickers and at changing the points to where they matter, and there's more of a difference between them. And I'm like, oh my god, like I was like, you are the kicker stan. Like there is nobody higher on kickers than you. He wrote out an entire monologue of how you can change the kicker position to make it matter and why they do matter and all this stuff. And I'm like, hats off to you, bro. Like this is amazing. We should frame this and it should just go on the wall because you put a lot of time and effort into researching this take on why kickers should matter and how you can make them matter again. Like it was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Kev just bringing the fantasy community together one kicker video at a time.
Yeah, I mean that's what we got to do here. Somebody's got to do it. So, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask if there's anyone who stood out to you. Obviously, we talked about Allen falling to the 4th. Is there anyone that you have been surprised about how early they have gone yet?
Not particularly. That really ultimately stands out. Like, I think, like Pittman, like I like Michael Pittman. You know this. Like we both have. Like we both love Michael Pittman, and we've loved him the last couple of years. But like, there is a world. I mean, he wasn't good last year, and he had 140 targets, right? And like now, this team is ultimately going to be much more run heavy this year than what they were last year because they were like top 8 in pass attempts per game last year, and so like, which is wild with the quarterback play that they have. But that's not going to be the case this year. This is going to be a much more run heavy team, and I just don't know if there's enough there for Michael Pittman to go off and to be worth taking him that high, which kills me because I love Michael Pittman and I would love to see him actually with like an elite offense. Now I think there's a world where fuck you, Alito, just fuck you, okay? This took Javonte, just took him right there. But I lost my train of thought. Like I'm angry. Like that. I was like, I'm easily going to get Javonte. Like there's no shot. And then here comes Walito just coming in sniping him. Can we kick him out? Can we reverse that pick, Commissioner? But yeah, I need to pick.
What are you going to do now? You all flustered.
I know. Like, and I don't know if I actually would have taken him, but it's just a goal. The goal of this guy to take Javonte Williams right in front of me. Some people's kids.
I think you have, we were talking about this last night. I think you have done approximately 18 like solo videos on Javonte Williams. I think it's where we're standing now.
Yeah, I am the I mean that guy's the kicker stan. I am the Javonte Williams stan. I have been on board since his days at UNC, And you and Robbie went the Michael Carter route. I went the Javonte Williams route, and I feel pretty good about that stance and who the line in the sand there on that one. So,
do we have Carter over Javonte Williams?
I think you guys did.
I think you're trying to tell yourself a story that doesn't actually exist.
Oh, we got it on tape somewhere. We can go back and find
Yeah,
it.
there has to be in the it has to be somewhere out there. I don't think we had Carter ranked over Javante.
Maybe Robbie did. He's not here to defend himself. Oh, Cody, you're on the clock right now. And I really just think Walito's here just to try to snipe me. This is the hard part, right? When we do this, because like I put all my takes out there on the internet for everybody to know, and so like I have an open book, and where so Walito is just like I feel like he's got the videos up. I was like, okay, he's into this guy, all right, I'm gonna draft him. Like he's got Damian Pierce, he's got Justin Fields, he's got Javante. Those are all my guys. He did take Keenan Allen. I could go either way on that one. But yeah, I mean, I love right now Walito's draft. I mean, he's doing a great job because these are all guys that I would love to draft. Yeah. Okay, so we just had Dalvin Cook come off the board. I need to hear what's your thoughts on Dalvin Cook.
Still probably. Let me see what other. There's still some other running backs that I would have taken over him. Like I would have rather had Dave Montgomery. He's still sitting there. I guess there's really not that many other running backs. I just wouldn't have taken him at that point. Like I said, I'd rather have Monty. I think I have Cook at like I don't know, I'm gonna say like RB 28, somewhere thereabouts. And I think I have Monty at like 25. So a little bit early. But I would have went Montgomery and then probably went another direction with that second pick, kind of coming back there. But what are your thoughts? I know you said you think he's starting to get a little dusty. Obviously, not on the same level as Ezekiel Elliott, but what are your thoughts on Cook?
Yeah, actually, I think you have Dalvin Cook significantly higher than what I have. Dalvin Cook at RB 40. That's where I have him. So,
Wow.
yeah, I don't think there's enough there for him to like maybe that's a little low. Maybe I should be a little bit higher, but like there's so many running backs in like the 20s and even the 30s that I really like. So right now, like I even have I have guys that I like Khalil Herbert, James Conner, David Montgomery, Rashad White, James Cook. Like I can make an argument for every one of those guys to be inside the top 24. But as of currently, I don't have them inside my top 24 because there's just so many options here at the running back position. But I think all those guys have a clear cut case over Dalvin Cook to draft him there. And then you get into the other guys like Antonio Gibson, who I like. And then, what's going to happen, how this is going to play out with DeAndre Swift. Then you have Samaje Perine and the Brian Robinson, who's probably going to be a starter. Like Zach Charbonnet has I think is an interesting option. Kenneth Gainwell, like there's a lot of running backs in that range that like I just don't know what Dalvin Cook's role is. Like I think it's possible that he only gets like 35% of the touches in this offense. And so I can't take him with any level of confidence that he's going to be able to earn any sort of value.
Yeah, I think that I get what you're saying, but at the same time, with the money they gave him, like I think he's going to have.
But have we seen like what is his actual contract? Not that I know his he can make up to $6.5 million, but what is his base like? And what are those incentives that he has to hit to get to that point? Because I highly doubt they're paying him 6.5. Like I think it's probably more.
I thought it was up to 8
or up to 8. Like what's his base? That's what
I think it's 7. I think I saw 7 on Spotrac. I'll try and pull that up here if you want to. It's a potential suspension. Okay, guaranteed base salary of 1.8. So contract also includes 1.2 million per game active roster bonuses. guess Spotrac was. What is Dalvin going to get suspended for? Interesting. I don't know that that was a thing. I guess we also never answered Gator's question. Gator's question here about Sanders or Jacobs. I'm personally I don't know, man. I'm staying away from Jacobs. I have no idea. I guess I need to look more into um, potential, like, the money that he could be missing, and that sort of thing, and fines, because I'm not entirely sure on that. I know the CBA changed to, like, where they, Lev Bell was kind of the last one who could just roll in at week 12 and still be okay. um but I don't know. He feels like the one running back who could just sit out. Like, I don't know how real of a possibility that is, or at one point he'll come back. But I would not. I personally wouldn't be looking at buying Jacobs unless it was dirt cheap, I guess.
Well, yeah, I think with a franchise tag though, I don't think you can sit out all year. You don't have to come back, like because you didn't sign it. You're just obviously not getting paid for that year.
Okay,
So
true.
he doesn't have to come back at all. If he doesn't want to because he's on the franchise tag. So but I think there's a real shot that maybe he does. But like to me, it's just suicide. Like you're not gaining anything from it in my mind. Like you're a running back. We've seen the market. Like nothing's changing. Like even if they rescinded the franchise tag, it's not like somebody's going to go out there and be like, all right, we're going to give you a 4-year, $45 million deal or a $50 million deal. It's just not going to happen. Like teams are starting to figure out that it's not a wise investment to pay running backs anymore, and it's smart, right? Like, or at least what they think they should get paid. What they think they should be paid up there with some of these other guys, and they shouldn't, because we've just seen now time and time and time and time again that they're easily replaced, and that you don't need an elite running back to win in this league. You need an elite quarterback. That's what you need. You don't need a running back. I mean, there's a reason why year in and year out in the Super Bowl, the running backs that win, what I think outside of what I think it's like the last 10 years, only one running back has been, like somebody you consider like at least in the upper echelon of getting paid and everything else. Like it's just not smart. We've seen so many guys fizzle out. Ezekiel Elliott was not worth a contract. Sorry, Rob. I know you're a Cowboys fan, but he was not in any way worth that contract that he got. Todd Gurley, same situation. Like there's been some outliers, right? With Derrick Henry, I'll say he has worked out, but he is more of a unicorn than anything. I mean, the man is still producing at the age of almost 30 years old. We just don't see that anymore with the running back position. So,
Yeah, I think as far as Sanders, Gator, I know you already had your draft. What I would do personally is I would look at ADP, look at rankings, because like at this point, that's really all we have to go off of. We haven't seen, there's no real, you can't sell high on, on a receiver yet, because we haven't seen anyone put, anything on tape yet in terms of, in terms of fantasy points. So if I were you, I would just look at your draft, see some wide receivers that went around that range, maybe a little bit earlier, a little bit later. Look at ADP, look at like a consensus ADP, a consensus ranking site, and try and figure out some guys that are going around Miles Sanders, and see if you can you can do anything around that. Thoughts on Swift? Don't hear many people talk about him. He's behind probably the best O line in the NFL.
it's just a really crowded room, and we're getting all these reports that Kenneth Gainwell could actually be the starter here. I'm not sure if I truly buy that, but we did see them in the playoffs last year and even the Super Bowl really lean on him. But with DeAndre Swift, like I can't take him with any sort of confidence, like at all. Like I mean, taking him in like the 6th, 7th round is kind of where he's going. Is like I just can't, because there's just so many running backs in that range that I would just much rather have that just make more sense than he does. Like I get it, the situation is awesome, right? Like obviously you're writing about the Eagles' offensive line is fantastic. The offense is going to be really good. But you also have Kenneth Gainwell there. You have Rashad Penny, the GOAT there, CHB. Rashad Penny, disciple, and so there's just not enough there for him. And we've also just seen Jalen Hurts really not target the running back, right? Like last year, the Eagles were one of the lowest teams in the league in terms of targeting the running backs, and so I just don't think there's enough there for DeAndre Swift because DeAndre Swift's not like a between the tackles type of grinder. Like he's an outside zone type running back. Get him in space. That's why he does so well in the passing game. I just don't think there's enough there to be able to trust him. Like, if it would it shock me if he was a top 10 running back this year in fantasy points per game? Nope. But I just wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah, the thing that worries me with Swift is, not only the things that you mentioned, and I don't know if you said this, I apologize, but obviously one of the things that we love about DeAndre Swift is his ability as a pass catcher. And I think last year Gainwell led them with 29 targets. And then I think Sanders was next with 26. So I just don't see that all of a sudden becoming like a check down, dump off type of offense. So especially for PPR purposes, I'm not that high on Swift. And it's not like he wasn't behind a good offensive line with the Lions. Like obviously they're not on the Eagles level, but it's not like he's going from a terrible offensive line to the Eagles. So obviously prefer him to be running behind a unit like the Eagles. But like I said, the thing I'm worried about is what kind of work is he going to get? What's his role going to be? Is he going to be able to make up for his lack of receptions with his rushing production? And I just don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Cody's on the clock. So we got Cody Kutzer on the clock right now. Currently, his team, he's got 4 wide receivers. He's got Cooper Kupp and T Higgins that he went in the first 2 rounds, and then he went Mike Williams and Marquise Brown, and now he's also taken 3 running backs in 3 consecutive rounds, 3 through 5. He went Ramondre Stevenson. He went with Miles Sanders and Alexander Madison. He currently has a decision. Oh, there it is, boys and girls. He went with a quarterback, Deshaun Watson. Let's go live to Cody and see how he's feeling about this pick. Cody, you've been grinding this entire draft. You're sitting there waiting on the board. You got your running backs, your wide receivers out of the way. What were you thinking there while you were on the clock? Quarterback, because you went tight end. What were you thinking there?
Yeah, like you said, obviously got my 4 wide receivers, went with Marquise Brown in that last round. Just looking at someone who is 100% outside of injury going to lead that team in targets. So felt good about getting Marquise Brown at that point. I'm looking around. I was kind of hoping that Dallas Goedert might fall to me, hoping Evan Ingram might fall to me. That did not happen. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, and there's a bunch of wide receivers that kind of cluster together again. No one that was really standing out to me as a must-have. The tight ends, like I just talked about, like now we're want to talk about a cluster. Look no further than the tight end position. And I'm looking at Deshaun Watson, and I think if he can bounce back, Dak Prescott was still sitting there, Tua is still sitting there. I think, especially based on what we saw with Watson last year, it's easy to forget that Deshaun Watson was putting up QB1 numbers on a regular basis whenever he was at his peak. Does he get back to that? Who knows? But I think that the ceiling is higher with Watson than it is with a guy like Dak. And Tua and the concussions just scare the shit out of me, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, I mean, like we talked about, Deshaun Watson is certainly, especially what do you got him at 8-10? Damn near the 9th round is where you're able to get him. And I think that he is there's just certainly some risk there because of how poorly he played last year. But I also think I just can't imagine a scenario that he just lost all his ability to play the quarterback position. I know he missed the time and all that stuff, but for as good as he was, it's just really hard for me to imagine, especially at his age. He's 27 years old, I think, 28 years old. I know he's right around the same age as Mahomes. They were drafted, obviously, in the same draft. And so, he's still young. It would just it's really hard for me to imagine that he's just going to be awful now.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so if Tony were available there, Kev, would you have taken Tony over Moore, or are you now all about that Sky Moore life?
I'm about that Sky Moore life. I like Kadarius Tony, but I have no faith the man's ever going to stay healthy ever. He came back and got in like one practice, and he's been out for the entire time. So, like, this has just been par for the course for Kadarius Tony, and I think he is a electric athlete. I think he is a playmaker for sure. But there's no way you can tell me he's going to play every game this year, and I don't even know if he's going to play half of the games this year. And so Sky Moore has been playing. He's been running a ton of snaps in the slot. Like, it looks like he's really going to play that Juju Smith-Schuster role and two wide receiver sets. He is on the field as well, so he's not going to be coming off the field. And so I really like Sky Moore. I think Robbie hit it there with that one, that he should be viewed as a top 36 wide receiver. He is not. I know that there's a lot of concern that the way that Patrick Mahomes last year kind of spread the ball around. But I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster, who suffered a injury over the latter part of the season where he kind of fell off, was still a very reliable option on a week to week basis for the most part. He was kind of like that wide receiver 3 flex option. And I think that's kind of the floor for Sky Moore this season. And so I like Sky Moore. I think that, we know that Andy Reid tends to not feature rookie wide receivers. I think you have to go back to like Deshaun Jackson for the time that he would do that. And so Sky Moore, I think, is in the driver's seat to be the Chiefs' number one wide receiver this year.
Yeah, obviously I took Tony 2 picks before you took Sky Moore, and like that is just swinging for upside, right? Like if he can be, obviously I don't need him to be healthy with having Cup, Higgins, Mike Williams, and Marquise Brown ahead of him. But if he ends up being healthy, even for a stretch of games, right? Like I think the Chiefs kind of want him to be the wide receiver one. They seem to like him a lot. Seem to want to feature him, like you said. His thing is just being able to stay on the field. So if he's able to do that, we're talking about 903 where I took him. I'm completely fine with taking that swing there. Roberto, what strategy would you take at the 110, and what do you think of the team drafting there tonight? So obviously we have Mr. 24K going at the 110. Went Bijan, Derrick Henry, Lamar in the third, Terry McLaurin, Ayuk, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, Pickens, and Mike Evans on the clock now in the ninth round. I like Bijan at the end of there. I obviously, this is a anti Derrick Henry fantasy channel. But with taking Bijan there, I truthfully would have rather have had Amon-Ra or Adams at that point, since you already have Bijan. If I take a running back early, I'm typically going to just skip that for a while. We're not expecting great things out of this Titans offense, but I guess that's been the case for the past couple of years, and Derrick Henry has proved us wrong time and time again. We've been talking about this offensive line, continually like getting worse, but he keeps coming out. He's just an absolute freak of nature. But the Derrick Henry jokes aside, I still would have went with Amon-Ra or Adams over him. Lamar Jackson, like we were already talking about, he's the early quarterback that I want, so I have no issues with taking him in the third. And then I think McLaurin is being a little bit undervalued. I'm not big on JSN at that point, just because not entirely sure what kind of volume he's going to get if his role holds through the season. Right now, it kind of looks like he is just locked into 3 wide receiver sets. I should go and look to see how often they ran 3 wide receiver sets last year. I don't know that off the top of my head, but other than that, I like it. Like I said, I would have went a different direction in the second, but Kev, I know you've been doing the strategy videos. I don't think you've gotten to the end of the first there, but any thoughts on the 110 and what you would be doing?
So I think there's 2 different ways to look at this, because again, I think this is a good parallel to what I was talking about with, like, in terms of how the wide receiver position does dry up. pretty quickly. And if you don't get one of the elite wide receivers, because obviously starting Bijan, and if Derrick Henry can still be Derrick Henry, like, can you're not going to get much right. Maybe the only one that rivals it would be Gator, who went Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor. Like, it's wild to think that that's the start you could get in the year of 2023 to be able to get both of those running backs. But I think Bijan and Derrick Henry are also right there, because Derrick Henry could finish as a top 5 running back this year, right? Like,
Yeah.
I have not yet to do my annual teardown of Derrick Henry video that I've done the last 2 years. Like, I'm hesitant. I'm like, this guy just shoved it down my throat the past 2 years. Like, I don't know if I want to stick my like. He's made me gun shy, and so, but and then Lamar Jackson, love that too. But then Terry McLaurin, I think is a solid like mid wide receiver too, because of the quarterback situation that they have there, because of the offense that they're probably going to be producing. Like, I still think there's a lot to like with Terry McLaurin, but then Brandon Ayuk is going to be inconsistent because of the offense that he's in. You already mentioned JSN as being the number 3 wide receiver. George Pickens, I think, is fine. And then Mike Evans, which would seem in most years, you'd be like, man, that's a steal to get Mike Evans in the 8th round. But I fucking hate Baker Mayfield, and I think he's terrible. And he is just an awful, awful, awful like quarterback. Like, he's not a starting quarterback in this league. I'm just sorry, he's not. And so, like, when you're fighting it out with Kyle Trask, like, that's all you need to know. Like, that you're not it.
Yeah.
And so I just don't love Mike Evans like this year, and I think the streak of 1,000-yard is going to come into serious jeopardy here for him, unless an injury comes like Chris Godwin or something like that. But they're just not going to throw the ball enough. They're going to be a really bad team, and so, like, I don't love the wide receivers. Like, I think the running backs, at least the first 2, are really good, but I think the wide receivers are fine, but they're not great, and so. I will also say bold going Sam Laporta all in the 10th round right now. And listen, I like Sam Laporta. Like, I think Sam Laporta could actually be like somebody that we're going to be talking about in season as like a really strong waiver wire ad. Like, there's been a lot of hype surrounding him in camp, but like drafting a rookie tight end in the 10th round is tough, especially with some of the other tight ends that are still sitting on the board right now. Like, I've talked about, like, I love Greg Dulcich this year. I think Dalton Schultz is in a good spot. He's probably going to lead that team in targets. Cole Kmet, I think, can be a really solid option. Chig Okonkwo I still think he's going to be good enough to hover around a top 12 tight end this year. Tyler Higbee is very underrated this year. I think he's going to see a lot of targets this year in this offense behind Cooper Kupp. And then, I do want to ask you before I know I have to make a pick him on the clock, but Dalton Kincaid, what is your thoughts on him?
My thoughts are I might take him with my next pick. He has to go. Hey, 24K. I will say that I was upset when I saw Laporta come off the board. He was someone who I've been eyeing up. I know I understand what you're saying, Kev, but I think with Laporta, you're looking at Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then who are we looking at? Obviously Gibbs is going to get his fair share of targets, but I think Laporta is going to be able to come in. Like, he's been running with the 1 since the first day of camp. From all reports, he's been getting. I saw one of the beat writers said that Laporta is more or less second in targets from Goff throughout training camp, right behind Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I do like getting Laporta this year. Like, if you just want to absolutely punt and wait, so like maybe he didn't have to take him at that point. But I like the pick. I'm here for it. But with Kincaid, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Kincaid?
I think people are kind of overhyping him a little bit. Like I've said, Dawson Knox is still there, and so. Like, I think they're going to do some things with him, but where is he at in the pecking order of targets? Like 4th, 5th, something like that. Like, I just don't really understand some of the excitement surrounding him. Or I've seen people have him as like a top 10 tight end already, like ranked as a top 10 tight end, and I just can't get there with him. Like, if he was going, like, if you could get him like tight end 16, 17, whatever, okay, you could probably talk me into that. It's the Bills' offense, one of the best offenses in the league, but like taking him where some people are talking about him is just like I just can't do it. And I get it, the tight end position is such a crapshoot anyway. And really, once you get past like the top 4, 5, 6
Yeah.
guys, something like that, it's wide the fuck open. And so even if he doesn't work out, you could always just throw him back into you could throw him back in and start streaming tight end and try to find something else. I get all that, but it's just I don't know just where he's kind of going just doesn't really excite me all that much. I've just seen a lot of people talk about
I think it's with Gabe Davis, kind of disappointing last year. Everyone was really high on him. I know I was not really high on him. I think he got to the point where I was out. But as a whole, there was a lot of hype and hope with Davis. He kind of underwhelmed, although his end of season, his full stats for the entire year really aren't that bad. For fantasy purposes, it wasn't great. He had a couple of those blow up games, and then didn't do much after that. But I think it's the fact that Gabe Davis disappointed, and then the capital that they spent on Kincaid, I think, is what's getting people excited. Kind of the same thing with Laporta, right? I don't think anyone saw Laporta going as early as he did, and now you have a it's devoid of pass catchers outside of, like I said, Amon St. Brown. So I think that's where it's coming from.
it. Yeah, I don't know. It's just he just seems like one of those guys, like I said, that just I'm not like over the moon to draft, I guess. Yeah, so I think like I said, Gino over Dak, interesting. Yes. So I like the Cowboys passing offense, but I don't think so. Last year, the Cowboys offense was top 10 in pace, and they were top 5 in pass attempts last year. And I don't think that's going to happen again. Like, we know that Kellen Moore loves to throw the football. And I know they've talked about this year, this offseason, that not a lot's going to change and that they're going to keep the offense relatively safe. I don't buy it. It's Mike McCarthy and fucking Brian Schottenheimer. I just don't buy it. I think they get a little bit more run heavy. I don't think that their pace is going to be nearly as good as it was, because pace is really what is what I think really pushed some of this as well. I don't think that's going to be the case. And so, like, I don't think Dak's going to be bad. I think I still have Dak like right around QB 12 in my rankings. Actually, I got him right here. I can tell you. Yeah, I have Dak at QB 12, and I have Geno at QB 10. And I just, like I said, I love the situation for Geno Smith this year, and I just don't. I think he's being undervalued for what he is. I think Dak is good. Like, I don't mind taking Dak at all, but I just think Geno Smith's in a better spot, in a better offensive situation overall this year with everything considered than what Dak Prescott is.
I like it. Up, Kev, you're on the clock. You have 10 seconds to make a pick.
Oh no.
See, we're gonna do under the pressure here. 10 seconds, Kev.
Just got it in. Just got it in.
Is Warren someone you were actually looking there? Or was that a panic pick?
No, I really do like Jalen Warren. I've talked a lot about. He was actually, I think I did a sleeper video, and he was somebody that I talked about in here and with it, because he was incredibly efficient last year, and I think he gets utilized more. I'm not at the point where I think that I'm not of the position that I think that he is going to overtake Najee Harris. Like, that's not going to happen. But I do think that he could start to command more of a workload than I think what people expect. Najee Harris is simply, to me, a grinder, and he's. I don't think Najee Harris is like as good as some people think that he is. Like, I just think that, but he really wasn't. Like, in college, he was kind of the same thing, more of a grinder back. He's not explosive. He's not someone who's going to rip off long runs. Now, I will say the offensive line improvements is going to help Najee Harris this year and open up more holes to allow him to get some of that. But Jalen Warren as a late round guy, for years when it came to like handcuffs, right? I mean, Alexander Madison was always the guy every year we talked about. Like you have to get him. And then who was a couple of the other ones that there was another one that was always with them. Like why can't I think of it? It was Alexander Madison and somebody else. But regardless, I just think that he's that guy. I think that he's a guy that you definitely, if something were to happen to Najee Harris, I think it would be wheels fucking up for Jalen Warren. Because one, we already know that Mike Tomlin is going to feed his running back. Like he doesn't really do committees, and so I just think Jalen Warren is one of the best like handcuff backs that you can get this year. Cardinal sin just broke. Just Cardinal rule just broke. We went Justin Tucker going early.
First kicker off the board.
Somebody didn't watch my kicker video in here. I mean, clearly not. I'm offended, but yeah. I don't know. It's just like, yeah. I mean, you do enough drafts. You know, I don't need a lot of time. 5 seconds, I'm good. I can make my pick. If I didn't go Khalil Herbert, I probably would have went Roshan Johnson because I love Roshan Johnson this year too. Like I think he looks really explosive. I think Khalil Herbert's going to still have the lock on the job, but I do think that Roshan Johnson is going to have a role here. I know Deonta Foreman is also there, but he's just a journeyman running back. I mean, I think he's fine if injuries were to happen or something like that. But like, I think to me, it's either Khalil Herbert or Roshan Johnson are the two running backs that I want to target out of that offense.
Who'd you rather have as your QB2 in a super flex league? Cousins, Goff, Geno, or Carr?
It would go Geno, Cousins, Goff, Carr. But it's really close between Cousins and Goff. Like I think it's clearly Geno for me, and then there's a slight drop off, and then it's Cousins and Goff. I think it's really close between either one of those guys, and then Carr is a pretty dramatic drop off to the next to get to that point to get to him.
Yeah, the answer is not Derek Carr. Like I'd be completely fine with any of those other three as my QB2 in a super flex league. Man, I haven't done quarterback rankings yet. I would lean Cousins first, and then probably go Cousins, Geno, Goff, and then Carr. But Cousins, Goff, and Geno all in a similar bucket for me. And I know we were talking about kind of fading Kincaid on where he's going. It's obviously the tight end I ended up taking right after we were talking about potentially not taking him. But I'm looking at the tight end list in terms of what is left. I mean, Schultz was going ahead of him. I don't understand how Cole Kmet can go ahead of Dalton Kincaid. That ADP, I did not understand whatsoever. But just like looking at the list, outside of Higbee, obviously if Stafford were able to stay healthy, Kincaid is definitely on the on the best offense. So that's kind of why I went Kincaid there, because if everything breaks for him, he's like I said, he's on the best offense out of that group. So that's why I went Kincaid there. Second kicker off the board. Like I said, sorry, Kev, taking the guy I finished at kicker number 1 in the last 2 years. I know I should be waiting, but
See, the problem is the difference in the fantasy points per game they score. So the 1 to the 12 is like a point per game. Like there's just such a small gap between between them. Like there's just no upside. You're not gaining anything from it from drafting those guys. Like maybe it's in my mind. And so like I don't know. I just don't think. And especially like what we've seen, like because a kicker who's fucking phenomenal, but hasn't been the last couple of years because of how the offense has been dog shit is Will Lutz. Like every video, like the 2 videos I've done with that, like everyone's like, "Where's Will Lutz? Why isn't Will Lutz on the top 12?" Because his offense is terrible, and so like now the Raiders' offense is going to be horrific this year. Like I think it's going to be really really bad. I think that team wins like 3 or 4 games this year. I have no faith in that offense whatsoever, especially if, even more so with Josh Jacobs, who could potentially be out. And so like there's just not a lot of excitement for to draft Daniel Carlson in that offense for me.
Potta, 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 potta. Should I trade away Cup and Pitts for Eckler and Mike Evans? My other wide receivers, Amari Cooper. Tight end is TJ Hawkinson. The only running back I have right now is Rashad White in a 16-teamer PPR. So trading away Cup and Pitts for Eckler and Evans.
I don't think I would. They
I feel
definitely
like
don't want.
if you could get something better than Mike Evans, I would debate it.
Right. That's
But I
yeah.
think that like because the drop off between Cup and Eckler isn't that far. So going from Pitts to Evans, to me that's too far of a drop. Obviously, with having Hawk, you have the ability to get rid of Pitts and not really be missing anything, especially in a 16-teamer. But I think that drop off is a little bit too far for me. And Kev, you are on the clock. 16-teamers are a whole different animal. I mean, I get it with with Rashad White being your only running back, like that definitely does not feel great. But you should be able to get something back a little bit better than Evans. Even if you can get just like another similar piece to Evans, because in a 16-team league, like depth is going to be very hard to come by. But I mean, with you having like maybe you could even just look at flipping Pitts for a running back. There has to be a team in that 16-team league that is bad at tight end. So with you having those both, I would try and keep Cup, maybe flip Pitts, and see if you can get maybe somebody. It's going to be another running back probably in that Rashad White-ish area, maybe a little bit higher. But I mean, I think you could look for. Like a Cam Akers, a Miles Sanders, who's falling a little bit. I would try and keep Cup there. Man, the running backs that I've been looking at just keep getting gobbled up. I was looking at Bigsby. I was looking at Mostert. Both of them went off. Any thoughts on that trade, Kev?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. Like I think Cup and Eckler could be somewhat of a wash in terms of that. And I guess if that's really what you're needing. And I think the other question would be who are your wide receivers too, right? Like what is this going to leave you with if you move on from Cooper Cup? And like does it create the same void that you're going to have by only having Rashad White? And do you have other options where maybe you can trade for some lesser running backs instead of giving up Cooper Cup to be able to do so? I think is where I would stand. I guess you just say my other wide receiver is Amari Cooper and tight end. So you only get one. But yeah, I think yeah, I think that's the way that I would view it.
NATO. Good to see the chat still popping off. We appreciate you guys. If you have yet to subscribe, please make sure you do so. Really helps us out. Will we be willing to trade a depth piece along with Carr to level up to Geno or Goff?
I mean, I guess that depends on what that depth piece is, right?
Yeah, but I'd be willing to do it. Like I said,
Yeah.
depending on what it is. But I also think if you like wait until week 1 or whatever it is, I can't remember who the Saints. Walito, you're in the chat. Who do the Saints start with? I do think there's a maybe it's the Falcons. They have week 1, so I do think there's a scenario where Carr puts up similar
They
numbers
had the
to
Titans week 1.
the Titans? Okay, so that dreadful pass defense that was just getting smoked week in and week out
I
last
will
year.
say this: the Saints' their schedule is fucking ridiculous. They got the Titans, the Panthers, the Packers, the Bucks, the Patriots, the Texans, the Jags, the Colts, the Bears, the Vikings, the Falcons, the Lions, the Panthers. I mean, what's the tough
Yeah.
team they're playing in this? I mean, really, or what really good defense are you saying? I mean, I guess the Patriots would be a tough one as an option there, but like their schedule is like Mickey Mouse, really, to be honest with you. So it's really not that bad.
Yeah, I talked about them as my, we're getting to the point where we're going to be looking at defenses and kickers now that we're coming up on the last, 3 rounds. Talked about the Saints for the exact reason you were just laying out there, Kev, with that schedule. Like their defense should be one that we're targeting in the last 2 rounds of your drafts.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, you said this. Well, you say the same thing every year about the Saints, okay? And I told you last year that they were gonna be horrible. Their only saving grace is they're in by far, not even close, the worst division in football. Like it's not like I don't think there's an argument to be made that this is the worst division in football. Like there's teams in other divisions that are that maybe as bad or worse than them. Like because if you look at like the NFC West is really bad, but at least they have the Seahawks and they have the 49ers in that division. So obviously 2 really good teams. The NFC South has absolutely nothing, like zero. There is not a team in there that that you're like, okay, that team's really good. Like it's all just a bunch of mid. It's just a really mid division.
Yeah. Here we go. Raylan coming in with Kev. Oh, okay, you're looking at it. Raylan coming in with one of the not as random as some of the questions have been, but this one is a little off the rails versus just a straight up fantasy question. Since we're near the end of the mock, would you rather receive inside NFL info from coaches for fantasy or see 2 weeks into the future?
See 2 weeks into the future, not even not close. First of all, I'll just play DFS and then just slaughter, right? Just play the millie the next 2 weeks and just be done. And just right off into the sunset. I'm out. Give me my $2 million. I would do that, but that would be fantastic. And I mean, the amount of profit, like week 1, it might be tough if like now is this you can only see 2 weeks and that's it, or like you can continually see 2 weeks into the future because if it's continuous, then obviously it is. But I'm assuming that you're going to see 2 weeks in the future because you can also sell that for a lot of money. Like, hey, I have the script. I really have the script and if you could like week 1, the first week you wouldn't be able to do anything with it because everyone's like, yeah, shut up, you're an idiot. But like if you completely nailed every single thing, 100%, what's going to happen? You could get some people to pay some serious money too the next week, right? For that, but like I said, DFS, for example, would be the way to go there. So yeah, it would be 2 weeks in the future.
Yeah, it'd be 2 weeks in the future for me as well. Because I feel like the inside info from coaches, if we're only applying it to fantasy, like I feel like that would really only be helpful on like there'd only be like a select few scenarios, or if an injury happens, we want to know like who the next guy up is, or something like that, right? Like that might be the scenario where we'd want that inside info. So yeah, I think it's definitely seeing into the future. AP rocking with us again. Last week we told him to drop Zeke. He did so. Thoughts about Zeke? I think you're still fine, AP. Like the reason why we were telling you to drop him is because the dude is dusty. Like to me, it doesn't really matter that he ended up with the Patriots. Like I said, like that offensive line is very questionable. Ramondre is still going to be the dude there, so I wouldn't be worried about it. I still stand by our decision. I know I can speak for you, Kev.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you don't even have to worry about that. Yeah, no doubt.
Gabe Davis, Pittman, Dotson, Elijah Moore would be the depth to add on to Carr to level up to Gino or Goff. I would
You know,
not be lumping Pittman into that group personally. I know you were talking about some of the questions you have and some of the concerns with Pittman a little bit earlier, but I would not be lumping him into that group. But I think with the other names, I don't know if that's going to move the needle. Although at this point, anyway, until we see them starting to put up some numbers, so I think that's something you're gonna have to wait until after week one is over to make that move.
in regards to Gabe Davis, like, is it like if it's kind of funny because everybody's out on Gabe Davis, but like he still finishes a top 36 wide receiver in fantasy points per game last year. I mean, 836 yards and 7 touchdowns. He scored at least 6 touchdowns in all 3 years that he's been in the league. It's just the hard part with him though is like when the hell do you start him, right? He kind of feels like a Ted Ginn type, right? Like that's how Ted Ginn was because he basically lives off of the deep ball.
Ted Ginn,
Yeah,
what
throwing
a
it
name
back.
drop.
I know. So like I don't think he's a terrible option, but I think we can stop thinking that he's ever going to be like this like high end wide receiver 2 type that everybody thought he
Eight
could
targets
be.
per game.
Yeah. You know what's something else fun to do? So I was trying to look some stuff up and look up the that I was trying to actually look that up when we talked about running backs. You know what's a fun game to do since PFF has it is to go back and look like previous seasons, like the top 12 running backs. Listen to these. Listen, this was the top 15 running backs in 2017. Todd Gurley was one. Le'Veon Bell, Alvin Kamara. Like none of that shocks me. Kareem Hunt, that was when he was in Kansas City. Melvin Gordon, Mark Ingram, LaShawn McCoy, Carlos Hyde. That is I was okay. That's a name.
Wow.
Christian McCaffrey was RB9 that year. Leonard Fournette, Duke Johnson, RB11.
Yeah. I love Duke
I
Johnson.
don't ever remember Duke Johnson being that good. I always remember like thinking that he was going to be a thing, but I don't ever remember him finishing has a top 12 finish. Then you have like guys
You're
like
on the
Jordan.
clock, Kev. You're on the clock.
I mean, like Jordan Howard is on this list. C.J.
Oh yeah.
Anderson, Lamar Miller, Lamar Miller.
Dude, love Lamar Miller. It's funny you say CJ Anderson. Me and one of my buddies were just talking about some old names, and we were talking about CJ Anderson earlier. I thought you were going to be talking about the immaculate grid that Pro Football Reference has, and that's why we started talking about some of those older names. The Broncos were on the immaculate grid, and I was like, man, did CJ Anderson go and play for for any of these other teams? But Alexis is rocking with us. Almost 1 a.m. up there in Canadian land. Wants to know the thoughts on the team. So Diggs, St. Brown, Najee, Jones, Waller, Swift, T-Law, Flowers, Juju, Rasheed Rice, Zeke, Carlson, Singletary, Cowboys defense with 1 pick left to go. So your thoughts on Alexis' team?
Well, I already said at the start the way that it started. I really like that. I think Darren Waller is a strong option. I like some of the depth pieces with Zay Flowers. You had to go and draft Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, I get it's 11th round,
Just
whatever.
ruins the whole thing.
Yeah, it just turns it to shit. Daniel Carlson in the 12th wouldn't have done that. We've already went over this. But I think overall, especially the start of this team is really good. Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback. I think you're solid there. You have no running back depth. Like in terms of like what I would say is considered like ceiling players or guys that could like break out and stuff like that. Like Zeke, that's not going to happen. Like we know what Zeke is at this point. At best, he's probably a 10 to 11 fantasy points per game type guy. Maybe if that were to work out. I guess in the 11th, maybe that's fine. But like in these rounds, like we talk about all the time, like I want guys that that can go off. Right, I want guys that can well exceed their ADP, and that's all I care about because a lot of these guys you're going to be turning through your roster anyway. Like you're not holding on to these guys. Like most of these guys, as soon as waivers start to come, you're going to start dropping some of these names off your team. And I want to move off some of these guys. Like and Ezekiel Elliott, you're always going to feel like, oh, well, look at his name, and I just have to hold on to him. And you're going to end up. He's like a roster clogger. He's never going to be somebody that you're going to be able to just plug in there and feel great about starting him. So like that's why for me, I just never draft those types of guys like him or I think like Odell Beckham is another name. Adam Thielen is another guy that like I don't want any of these super aging vets that are kind of clinging on in their career that just don't provide any update or any upside.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that if we were to look at the starting lineup for this team, I think we'd both be on board that we really like it. Swift was a little bit early for my taste and kind of the concerns we have with him. But other than that, I like the team. I'm with the Zay Flowers love as well. I know that's your team, Alexis, and I'm with you with Zay. I really like him, and he's definitely a player. I'd be looking to snag in my drafts for sure.
And I think go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say happy to see Alejandro in here asking about must-have players. We haven't. I don't think we've done a show like that yet, Kev.
I mean, there's, I mean, at running back for me, I've talked a ton about Tony Pollard. I want him any chance I can get. Amon-Ra St. Brown, like those are the two guys in the second round that I'm absolutely in love with, getting as much as I possibly can. I think Damian Pierce is another player that you can get a little bit later, fourth, fifth round. Javonte Williams, ADP still hasn't moved, even though he's going to play in a fucking preseason game. I think next week this weekend he's supposed to play in preseason. If that's all you need to know where he's at in his development and where he's at health wise, that's all you need to know. The fact that he's even going to play in a preseason game is absolutely wild to me. And so like I think Javonte, I'm well ahead of consensus on Javonte. I have him at RB 16 in my rankings. I think most people have him like RB 28. And so I think he is somebody that's exploiting that value. Even if he does have a time split early in the season with Samaje Perine, I think by week 12 at the worst is going to take over this backfield, and it is going to be his. So I like exploiting that value as well. I think those are at least those are the guys like right off the top of my head that I just really want to come away with. I think somebody like Jerry Jeudy. I've talked a lot about Brandon Cooks. I'm way ahead of consensus on Brandon Cooks. Christian Kirk, I think, is being undervalued for. I think it's possible he could still be the number one wide receiver in this offense. Even I like Calvin Ridley. I have Calvin Ridley ranked relatively high, but I think Christian Kirk can at least sustain and be a strong wide receiver too. Like we saw Zay Jones and Christian Kirk last year, coexist. And so I don't think there's any reason that Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley can't coexist as well. Like Christian Kirk just always feels like he's just kind of being undervalued every single year. Really like Jordan Addison as well as kind of I think the rookie that has kind of the clear path to being the best rookie of this class, at least year one. Quentin Johnston's the other guy that I think also on this offense. Like I really want to attack the Chargers offense this year.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if he is a must-have for me, but a guy that I absolutely love this year is Nick Chubb. You already talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. I just moved him above CeeDee Lamb in my wide receiver rankings. It will be dropping here shortly. So Amon-Ra is a guy that I am on board with as well. I think just in terms of where they are being drafted, Mixon and Miles Sanders are kind of on my list of guys who like I really want to target. I think they can fit any build, whether you're going, no, I guess it would be kind of, modified zero RB because they're not falling into that traditional zero RB threshold. But, if you go anchor in the first round, then you go ahead and take Mixon and, the third, fourth, or Sanders in the fifth. Like, I think that makes a ton of sense. Lamar Jackson, not is a guy who, like I said before, I think he has the upside to finish as the overall QB1. I don't think he's necessarily, obviously he's being drafted as like a top 5-ish quarterback, but I don't think he's being mentioned as, having that number one overall type of ceiling. And I can definitely see that with him. Another guy where he's dropping way too far is Isaiah Pacheco. He's someone that I really like grabbing. And I think Trevor Lawrence is someone all these weapons we're talking about. I think he makes a ton of sense if you're kind of going like not going early, you're not going late, kind of going that mid round QB approach. I think Trevor Lawrence makes a ton of sense too. So not instead of trying to figure out where that ball is going to be distributed, you just take the point guard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with all with everything you said. John Wick, been a savage. If I get Mahomes at 102, what is the worst quarterback you can take you'd take at the 211 or 302? Half PPR, super flex, 6-point passing touchdown.
I think with Superflex, especially if you're talking about waiting all that way until it comes back around, um, I'd really just be looking at the draft board, right? Because like if there's like a huge run on quarterbacks, at that point you might as well just kick the can, right? Like you might as well wait until some of the guys like we were talking about, like Geno Smith isn't getting any kind of love after his year last year. I mean, we saw how far Dak fell in this mock. Now that's not something I would necessarily expect. Obviously, he's not going to fall that far in a 2 QB, but in terms of just like where he went overall in terms of the quarterback, I think you can look at him. Kirk Cousins never gets the props that he deserves. He's always in that QB 11 to 14 range. What feels like for the past 5 years. So I think it really just depends on what ends up happening in your draft. Like I said, if it gets back to me and I'm looking at, I don't know, let's say QB 18, like say it's just a massive run on quarterbacks, I'm just gonna kick the can. You know what I mean? Like I'll take like a Kenny Pickett, I guess, if you want to talk about the worst one that you would want as your QB2. Like I would just wait on him. I would take like a Kenny Pickett, like I said, Geno Smith. Um, the aging quarterbacks is somewhere that you can always look to exploit as well. Like even Derek Carr, I think it'd be fine. I don't even know if Aaron Rodgers went in this draft, but he's kind of falling. So I think it really just depends on how the draft goes. Like I wouldn't necessarily be locking yourself into taking a QB at that 2-3 turn, especially if there's a massive run. Now, if there's someone who's sitting there that value a lot higher than the guys that are left, go ahead and take them. But I wouldn't lock yourself in, especially where you're drafting, because there could just be a massive run on quarterbacks, and then you can give yourself the advantage of other people starting to reach on QBs. At that point, maybe an Amon-Ra falls into your lap, or depending on whatever ends up happening at running back, you could look to go that direction as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually like the Kenny Pickett. I think if you want to wait on a quarterback a little bit later or a little bit, depending on who's there, I think Kenny Pickett is certainly a quarterback you should be looking at. I like him. I actually have Kenny Pickett ranked like QB 21, so that's probably a little bit higher. Someone like Sam Howell too, I think has some sort of upside there that could pay off. Like because generally speaking, like when you get Patrick Mahomes, like the gap, especially like how much better him, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts were compared to the rest of the field, it already gives you that big advantage with him. And so but I don't think in the 211, 302, even in a super flex, like I still think you're probably gonna have quarterbacks like Matt Stafford sitting there, Russell Wilson, maybe Jared Goff could still be sitting there in that range. And like I think like obviously Jared Goff, I would have no problem taking as my QB2. Neither would I think Russell Wilson is going to be better this year. How much better we'll see, but I mean it can't be understated how bad that offense was with Daniel Hackett was. It truly was horrific how bad he
Yeah.
was at play calling and just the offense in general. As soon as he left, they all of a sudden everybody started playing better, and so I don't think it can get any worse than that. So Russell Wilson could be a tremendous buy. Like I don't think it would shock anybody if Russell Wilson bounced back and was like a top 10 fantasy quarterback again this year. Like that's in the range of possibilities, and you're buying at such a discount. So I think those would be excuse me, the guys that I would be looking at quarterback if you're really wanting to wait, or you could go to the well of like the rookies. But I don't know how I would feel as comfortable with taking those guys like your QB2.
Surprised you didn't mention your boy Danny Dimes. That's another QB2 who I'd be completely fine with.
Oh, for sure. I mean, especially with the rushing. I mean, the guy, people like just forget that he had almost 700 rushing, or he had over 700 rushing yards last year. Like, it's not going away. Like, he's still going to run at a really high rate. And so, yeah, I think Danny Dimes is also somebody that we could be looking at as well.
Get out of here on this one. Gator wants to know, how'd you guys grade my mock? McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Mark Andrews, Debo, Judy, Connor, Lockett, Rashad Penny, Tua, Bateman, Anthony Richardson, Mooney, and then we have the kicker of the defense and Zamir White with the last pick. Like getting Zamir White with that last pick, I think that one makes a ton of sense. Like your first three picks, I'm a little bit lower on Debo. I'm kind of fading him a little bit this year. I'm surprised where he's going in terms of, consensus rankings that Fantasy Pros has, consensus ADP. So I probably would have try to go a different direction there but I guess like the names that are going around there, I'm not in love with either. Like Connor, if he can stay healthy, that's going to be a fantastic pick. Where you got him, wouldn't have doubled down on the quarterbacks really at any point, but especially as early as you did. But I definitely think the team with your top three with McCaffrey, if Taylor can be Taylor, and Andrews, does what he expects him to do, I think you'll have that positional advantage there for sure.
Yeah. TX. So for him, team 4, we had Jamar Chase, Josh Jacobs, Devonta Smith, Joe Burrow, Brees Hall, Chris Godwin. Right out the gate, obviously love the Jamar Chase pick. Devonta Smith in the 3rd round, I think is tremendous as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of risk here with this team, though. Josh Jacobs, we still don't know what the hell's going to happen. Obviously, it's a mock. We'll know once you probably get closer to, like, if you were doing this like right before the season start, we're going to know what's going to be going on with Josh Jacobs by that point. But right now, like, it is a huge risk because he could, and maybe he doesn't sit out the whole year, but I mean, he could sit out half the year. Like, we don't know what's going to happen with Josh Jacobs at this point because there's really nothing else that can be gained from him, though, because they can't offer him a new contract. They can't do anything right now. If he because he's been franchise tagged. Now they could rescind it and then I guess re-sign him. They could do that. I guess that would be an option, but I guess that's still in the cards. There's been some rumors that they could pull the franchise tag off of him and he could just go be a free agent. But then you don't know where he's going to land and everything else. So taking Josh Jacobs in the 2nd round is just a bridge too far for me. Like, I have dropped him pretty significantly in my rankings, which we'll probably talk about tomorrow. And then Brees Hall, like we talked about, like there's a lot of ceiling there for him. But with Dalvin Cook there, could also be capped. Joe Burrow, I think, is obviously fine. Chris Godwin, I don't like if I'm going to draft a Bucs wide receiver, it's probably going to be Chris Godwin just because he does all the short intermediate route type stuff here in the offense. And, with Baker Mayfield, that's probably what he's going to lean on the most. And then I think you did well with drafting some of these later round guys. Kenneth Gainwell, like we talked about, could end up being a steal. Elijah Mitchell in the later rounds, especially if anything happened to Christian McCaffrey. And Quentin Johnson, love him. I love getting a piece of this offense. Yeah. Deuce Vaughn, I don't. He's never going to be a thing. Ever. Like we've never seen a running back at his size ever do anything in the NFL ever. Ever. And so I guess maybe Darren Sproles would be that the weird outlier. But even Darren Sproles was bigger than him. And so there's no shot that Deuce Vaughn ever does anything in the NFL. I just don't see it. Outside of maybe just a small complimentary role. But overall, I still think the team's really solid. I think there's a lot of depth here. Obviously, there's some risk with Josh Jacobs and Brees Hall, but if it all plays out, this team could be fantastic. But there's also some downside risk with who you drafted. Like, I will say this: if I would have drafted Josh Jacobs, I am drafting Zamir White just in case. Like, I don't like drafting handcuffs, but this is one of those situations where I'm going to take that shot on Zamir White a little bit earlier. Like, where you took Deuce Vaughn is where I would have taken Zamir White just in case to protect myself if they don't keep Josh Jacobs. So that's so. But overall, like I said, I think it's pretty solid. Walito, you did awesome picking, Travis Kelce, Damian Pierce, Justin Fields, Javonte Williams, and Brandon Cooks. The rest of your team, though, is certified dog shit. And I would give this team a C because of those picks. I'm just kidding, Walito. listen, I think there's a lot to like here with this team. Obviously, like I said, you drafted a lot of players that I really like, so there's no denying that. So I'm not going to shit on this. Travis Kelsey, there is a true case to be made that Travis Kelsey should be the 101. Like there is a scenario where he should be involved in the conversation with the 101 because of the positional edge you get, the massive positional edge you get with him, and just the numbers he puts up. I mean, he puts up wide receiver one numbers anyways, but so Travis Kelsey is solid. The wide receiver group is really good outside of Michael Thomas, who's Michael Thomas and hasn't been healthy since 2019. And then Brian Robinson I think is fine. Alan Lazard, Rondell Moore. I think that they're like wide receiver fives for the most part, wide receiver fours. And then Raheem Mostert, I think he's an interesting shot in the later rounds. He's trying to get a piece of this Miami offense because Devon Achane, like I like, but I think also people are getting way too over their skis with Devon Achane with like talking about him as being like the starting running back for this team. I'm like, have you seen like did you watch like I was watching the preseason game and like he would be engulfed by offensive linemen. Like he would like you don't even know where he went. You're like, where'd he go? Where'd he go? Because he's like 5'8", 188 pounds. They said he's like I think they said he put on a little bit of weight. Now he's 190. But like I don't know. Like he's so small. Like I think at best he's like Chris Thompson. Like that's who he is. He's just going to be a pass catching specialist, satellite back. He's never going to be a guy that's going to get like 15 carries a game or anything like that. But so yeah.
Another name drop there with Chris Thompson. You're on a roll tonight, Kev.
Hey, there's one thing I want to do before we get out of here. Let's rate mine next, but imagine I picked Eckler instead of Barkley.
So Barkley, Pollard, Metcalf, DJ Moore, Herbert, Kamara, Ingram, Gabe, Elijah Moore, P. Ryan, Dobbs, Chark, Kyler Murray, Renfro, and then Michael Wilson. I even think taking like Barkley ahead of Eckler is fine. Like I'd rather have Eckler, but like I don't think that like completely changes the way that I feel about it. Metcalf is a guy that like I don't know. I really don't know where to put him. Like I don't know what to do with him just because I'm unsure of JSN's involvement and how much 11 personnel they're going to run. DJ Moore is a guy I've always been a little bit lower on. I think I've moved him up a little. But I mean, I like, we already talked about how much I like Herbert. Having Kamara as your RB3 is really strong. Gabe Davis we talked about. I do like Elijah Moore. If he can kind of overtake Njoku and kind of be that second target. We've heard a lot of good things about him. Now, like the swings you took on Dobbs and Chark, I definitely would have taken Kyler Murray with having Herbert, especially without knowing what Kyler is going to be dealing with and when he's going to be coming back. Unless let's say we had an IR spot, then it's kind of whatever. But if you don't have an IR spot to plug him in there, that's kind of just like a wasted pick. But I do like this team. I would go a B- here just because of my little not knowing what to do with Metcalf, DJ Moore, but I do your running backs are stacked, and I do like grabbing Ingram. I think he's kind of being looked over a little bit.
Yeah, I think this is at least a B+ for me. Like I love the running backs, even if you took Saquon Barkley or Eckler, like you said, like I think there's definitely a defensible case. I think there's a case with Austin Eckler, like I've kind of mentioned this with him that there's like he's really been in a really awesome situation because so many injuries. They haven't had as many options in the passing game with all the but I think there's a world where he doesn't see nearly the targets that people think that he's going to this year. And if everybody's able to stay healthy, now that's obviously a big if with this wide receiver group. But if they do, like Austin Eckler may not see the type of target share that we typically see from him, and he's already a limited runner. Like he's not a guy that you're going to be able to bank on to get 16, 17 carries a game. That's not going to happen either. And so, like if that target share were to drop, then the ceiling drops significantly. Where Saquon, we have no worries with that whatsoever. I mean, he's going to be heavily utilized across the board with this team, and he's pretty much is the running back here. You're not really worried about him too much coming off the field. And so there is an argument to be made with Saquon over Austin Eckler. So I don't mind that. I'm much higher on DJ Moore than I think you are. I like DJ Moore quite a bit. And I think DK Metcalf, I think he's fine. I think he is a solid, like high end wide receiver too in this offense. And then I think the rest of this, like you kind of mentioned, like Kyler Murray was a wasted pick. You don't need to draft him. I don't think Kyler Murray plays this year. Hunter Renfro, you didn't need to draft him either. Hunter Renfro might not even make this team. I don't think he may even be on the Raiders. If he is, like that's actually worse because I don't think he's going to have a role at all on this team whatsoever. And so, yeah. But overall, I think it's a solid team. I think there's a lot to work with here. I think maybe work the waiver wire a little bit. If this was a real team, that you could do that. So, yeah, I don't think it's terrible. Lastly, like I said, I was kind of going through some of these as we were kind of going back and forth, looking at some of these years. And so here's 2014. This is fun. This is fun. Some of the names I saw in here. Now, some of them are obvious, like Le'Veon Bell, DeMarco Murray, Matt Forte. Loved him. This is 2014.
Love
Marshawn
Forte.
Lynch. Eddie Lacy was a top 5 running back in 2014. Big old fat Eddie Lacy was amazing. Justin Forsett
Wow.
was a top 8 running back in 2014. Lamar Miller, again, the GOAT. Just once again, just killing it when he was in Miami. Jeremy Hill. Anybody that's been following this for a very long time knows my affinity for Jeremy Hill back in the day. It was a running joke for a really long time. But the fun ones. Joik Bell for Detroit. I'm like, oh man, Joik Bell was RB13. Matt Asiata was RB15 in 2014. You have
goal line Matt Asiata just falling into the end zone.
Yes. You also have past that, you have Alfred Morris in Washington. You have Fred Jackson for the Bills. Andre Ellington was such a fun name there for a little while. Shane Vereen. Ahmad Bradshaw apparently was still in the league for the Colts.
D'Angelo Williams anywhere on that list?
Let me see. You have Jonathan Stewart, Andre Williams, Brandon Oliver, Rashad Jennings, Trey Mason, Roy Halou. Pierre Thomas, Trent Richardson, Niall Davis. Oh, there's nothing better than going through that. Anyways, I'm wasting everybody's time. Anyways, so once again, I appreciate everybody rocking with us through the chat. Chat was live for a very long time here. I appreciate everybody rocking with us. I've said it twice now in a row. Sorry, I was up till 2:00 in the morning last night. But again, if you haven't already, please hit that like, subscribe button. It really helps us out. Really, we're trying to grow. I want to be over. I think by the end of the week, I would like to be over the 4,000 mark. But I would like to be by the end of September if we could be. I think we can hit 5,000 by the end of September. I think if we keep grinding the way we're going and see some positive growth, but at the very least, we better be over 4,000 by the time the season starts. We're only like 35 subscribers away from the 4,000 mark. So I appreciate everybody rocking with us. Again, if you haven't already, be sure to jump into our Discord. It's absolutely free. Also, DFS Walito is coming in the next couple of weeks. I think I need to get with Maddie to figure out when we're going to fire up the DJ Nation pod once again. Probably need to do that. Probably a week 1, early week 1 review. We haven't done that yet. So DFS DJ Nation pod is going to be coming here really soon. Football's back, boys and girls. That's all I care about. Season starts 3 weeks from tomorrow. So if you have any questions, jump into our Discord or leave any comment on any of our videos. We'll answer them all. And like I said, I generally leave like entire paragraph responses. I don't just respond with like a 1-word answer. So it's because that's what we do here. We're here. We're people. We're here for the people. And also, nuts on the table. Walito keeps asking. I think we could do that next week. You want to do that next week?
Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, with only a couple weeks left, I mean, we don't really have many other options.
Run out of time.
Yeah. So I think next week we'll make it official. We'll do nuts on the table takes, bold predictions next week. So we'll do that same time, same place next week. So again, everybody have a great rest of the week. Have a great weekend. And we will see you here very soon with some nuts on the table. One of my favorite shows of the year. Good times. I love to review some of the ones we had last year. I know I had Justin Fields. I think it was Justin Fields and Trey Lance as top 12 quarterbacks. One was awful. The other half of it worked out. But anyways, Cody, have a good night. Chat. Everybody that joined the mock draft. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you on the next one. Bye.